As you enter your home from a long day of school or work, you might find yourself going to the game console in your room. More often than not, games are used as a way of relaxing when there is a lot of stress. However, people rarely wonder where exactly games come from, or the technological advancements made in order to have a game console in the first place. So let's find out when and where these technological marvels were made. Video games first started in 1971 with a very simple arcade machine running the game called Computer Space. Not long after, in 1972, Ralph Baer released the home gaming system known as the Magnavox Odyssey. This system was extremely simple, with a lot of dependence on physical games that came along with it, such as dice and cards. Though the game console did not sell well commercially, it opened the path for home consoles. Months later, the game Pong was released as an arcade game and was extremely popular. In 1975, Atari went further with Pong and released the game as a home console. Atari had now placed itself at the top of the video game companies. In 1976, the Fairchild Channel F was released, and with it, a new innovation. Up until this point, games were preloaded into whatever console they were in, but with the release of the Fairchild, games could now also come as cartridges. The innovation was quickly overshadowed with the release of the Atari 2600. The Atari 2600 was the next step for home gaming. The 2600 came with 128 bytes of RAM, a laughable amount by today's standards. But for the time it came out, this was the pinnacle of innovation. Around this time, the first handheld console, the Microvision, was made, but handhelds would not take off until nearly 10 years later. Although Mattel, Coleco, and Atari had made games that were popular, interest was slowly lost as time went on. In comes the NES. With the introduction of the NES, much more complex games were created for home consoles, allowing classics of today to exist. Games such as Super Mario and The Legend of Zelda all made their debut to audiences across the globe. This single console release drove Nintendo to the peak of gaming companies, continuing with its innovations. Nintendo released the Game Boy in 1989. As time went on, games were becoming more popular, but also showing more and more content without restrictions. This is until Mortal Kombat was released in 1991. Mortal Kombat was an outrageous game at the time, as it showed core, which led the government placing a rating system for games. In 1995, Sony released the console that would later become a giant in gaming, the PlayStation. The system itself was only a bit more advanced at the time, but it was the way their games were made that made the PlayStation such an impressive piece of technology. Sony had made games easier to make for third parties, allowing more games to be sold. Quickly gaining fame, Sony decided to roll out their next console, the PlayStation 2. The console featured many improvements over the previous, such as an improved RAM and a better processor. By now, Sony was at the top of the gaming world, and companies such as Microsoft wanted to try their hand at a home console. That attempt was released in 2001 as the Xbox. With a lot of inspiration from the PlayStation, the Xbox quickly rose in popularity and cemented its place in the gaming industry. On the PC side of Microsoft, Valve was getting ready to release Steam. With the release of Steam, games on PC were put together in one place, making it very easy to access popular games. This single program made gaming more available to players in the PC market. On a smaller scale, mobile games were beginning to have colored graphics. Then, on 2007, a monumental change occurred for mobile gaming, the release of the App Store. Since then, games on mobile devices have almost always been available in the App Store or in Google's Play Store. As games became more advanced, so did the players, and by 2015, tournaments such as esports had become popular sources of entertainment for many gamers. Like with many things, there is not one way of viewing video games, so we interviewed people on their thoughts about video games.
Video games entertain me because it distracts me from the actual world and I can actually do something that I can't do in real life.
Video games help me by letting me relax relax if I had a hard day, if I got in a fight with a friend, if I just want to relax and have fun.
PlayStation, because I think the most common console platform out there, and can really make a lot of friends with it.
My favorite game would be Alan Wake because it had a nice story,
My favorite game is Fortnite because it's free to play.
My favorite game has to be Tetris because it's just, I, it's like the first game I've ever played and I'm still playing it now. A good game has to have a good story, a good replay value, and a good emphasis of having fun.
I spend, I'd say, around 15 a month just buying currency. My first console was for my 7th birthday. I got a Nintendo DS, and it was the best thing ever.
My first console didn't affect me much right now because I was a little kid. I prefer different things now than when I was a little kid, so I can't say exactly that it made me biased towards one thing.
I don't feel games can harm people. People sometimes don't necessarily know what to do when they play games. Maybe they can change the idea of how someone thinks, but that depends on the person.
I would say that video games have helped me be more social.
How do video games make you feel in the moment?
You get excited, mainly when there's a lot of action going on in the game in that point in time. You also get like frustrated if something's going wrong or if you're losing, let's say.
If, in my opinion, online multiplayer actually makes the game better than just playing by yourself.
Mobile games, I feel like it's a type of thing where like they're not the best, but slowly they're growing, and like probably in the future they'll be one of the biggest things because everybody has a phone and everybody likes the game. So there's those two things like really combine to make an amazing thing.